What is up, guys? It's your boy Parth back at it again with another poetry breakdown for y'all. Now, in today's episode, we're going to be looking at a poem called The Way Through the Woods by Rudyard Kipling. Now, obviously, before we talk about the poem, let's hear it. They shut the road through the woods 70 years ago. Weather and rain have undone it again, and now you would never know there was once a road through the woods before they planted the trees. It is under the coppice and heath and the thin anemones. Only the keeper sees that where the ringdove broods and the badgers roll at ease, there was once a road through the woods. Yet, if you enter the woods of a summer evening late, when the night air cools on the trout-ringed pools, where the otter whistles his mate, they fear not men in the woods, 'cause they see so few. You will hear the beat of a horse's feet, and the swish of a skirt in the dew, steadily cantering through the misty solitudes, as though they perfectly knew the old lost road through the woods. But there is no road through the woods. So, that's the poem, and I know what you're thinking. That poem, absolute fire. And yeah, you're right. So I'm going to send it over to my other correspondent, Richard, and he's going to tell you a little about what this poem actually means. Thank you so much, Parth, for that wonderful reading. Now, I'd like to actually talk a little bit about what this poem actually means. So let's look at this poem at face value, right? They shut down a road going through the woods 70 years ago. The elements have kind of undone this road, the rain, the snow, and now you actually can't even tell that there's a road going through the woods. It's under all these different flowers. The poem talks about the coppice, the heath, the anemones, and not only that, but the animals that are in this forest they're not even afraid of humans, right? Looking at the animals' interactions, the otters, as the poem mentions, whistle to each other, and they're not even scared of humans because of how little interaction they have. Right, so this is kind of the poem at face value. But what does it all mean, right? This poem was written for a reason. So you might have figured it out by now, or you might not have. But this poem is kind of disguised in one big metaphor. Now, the road is a metaphor for humans or us as a civilization, and nature here is representing itself. So looking at this poem again, right, it starts off, it talks about something that humans did or humans created. They built this road, right? Then, 70 years ago, this road was shut down, right? They stopped using it, and it slowly started to become reclaimed by the earth. You can't even tell that there was a road there because of the plants, the animals, right? It's sort of as if the human impact on this place didn't ever happen or didn't even exist. Furthermore, to prove this, the animals aren't even scared of humans anymore because they don't see them here. Right? There's a distinct lack of human presence, and nature has kind of easily readapted and taken over where we used to be. Right? Human presence in this area was once very prevalent, and now sort of irrelevant. So what this means, big picture, or what I took away from it, was that the human race often sees itself as a driving force in the planet. And we build things, we change a lot about our surroundings, except we often forget that we aren't the biggest thing out there. The earth has been here for millions of years before us, and it will be here for millions of years after we're gone. And we need to be aware of our impacts on our surroundings and the environment, because if we're not careful, we will disappear, and the earth will reclaim what we've done and what we've built as if it wasn't even there. Now, I feel like it's also a little important to look at how the author actually gets this point across. One of the main things it does, obviously, here is metaphor. This entire poem is sort of built around this metaphor of the road being kind of related to humans and civilization, and nature representing itself. I think the imagery here is really smart and useful by the author because it talks about the trees, the animals. It all really helps paint a picture in the reader's mind and help them understand what's happening. And if you noticed, actually, in this poem, repetition is used a lot. I when previously my correspondent Parth read the poem, he said that there was no road through the woods at least 5 or 6 times. And what this does is every single time you repeat this, it sort of solidifies the idea in the reader's mind and really helps them understand and take home the fact that there is no longer a road through the woods. It's been reclaimed by nature. Now we're actually going to get our guest lecturer Nick on this and talk about why, we kind of chose this poem for our episode today and why this poem should be included in the anthropology for our generation. Thank you so much, Richard. Now I'm going to be talking a little bit about why this poem was selected and why, our generation needs this in its anthropology. So, why do we select this poem? At first, reading over this poem in the newspaper, didn't really think of it as much. It wasn't really anything special. It was about a road that gets shut down. Okay, cool. Who cares? Right? But the author does a few things to really drag the reader in, and I think the biggest and most important one here is the imagery. The plants used are very specific. The coppice, the heath, the anemones really helps the reader picture what the road looks like now covered by these plants. Not only that, but talking about the otter whistling to its mate, or the little pools of water, or even the horse's tail making the skirting noise through the forest, it really helps the reader picture what's happening and overall drags them in. So, I read it over once, didn't really think it was anything special, really looked at the imagery, closed my eyes, and thought about what this means, and now, read it over again. Why is this poem, special? Why is this poem important? So, when looking at our generation, there's a lot of different areas or topics that you can talk about, right? Talking about something like social media, or talking about mental health. These are all really valid issues, especially for our generation, except I feel like these are all social problems, right? These have to do with the collective mindset and the way that we as a society approach things. Except when it comes to something like the environment and, extrapolating that to climate change, this is something really physical. It's not about how we think about something. It's physically about what's happening. And personally, I think that climate change is one of the biggest, if not the most pressing issue of our time. And so we knew that for today's episode, really choosing something that has a really big impact on basically everybody, no matter where they're from, is important. No matter of race or socioeconomic status or anything. Really, we wanted to choose something that would affect everyone. And so, climate change really is an important pick, right? And so we need to really think about the legacy of our generation, what we're leaving behind. This entire poem talks about how, the earth has reclaimed something that humans once thought as indispensable, as we once thought that we would be using this road forever. The earth has sort of taken it back and said, no, this isn't yours. This belongs to me, my resources, and so I'm taking it back. And so I think the legacy, when we think about our generation and what others will think of in the future when they think of us, we really need to be aware of our impact on the environment and how we're really using the earth and how we're leaving it. Because at the end of the day, the earth and nature as a force is kind of a constant in our lives. And so I felt that it was really important to include it and talk about it, because climate change and the way we use the earth is really something that, no matter who you are, affects you, and something that we really need to focus on and keep in mind in everything we do as a society. Thank you so much for tuning into our episode this week. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those post notifications, comment down below what you liked about the episode, what you didn't like about the episode. We'll respond to as many as we can. Don't forget, we have podcasts coming out every Tuesday and Thursday on Spotify. And tune in next week every Monday, as usual, for another fantastic poetry breakdown.